Hello Kimbap TV friends, I'm Christine, empowering you to live a happier and safer life, especially if you're a fellow domestic violence survivor. In this video, I want to share with you a very special speech. It's actually the first time I spoke publicly about my experience as a domestic violence survivor, and I did it in front of hundreds of people. I remember shaking pretty badly because so many emotions just came rushing back as I recounted some key moments that are still incredibly hard for me to reflect on. But I did it to help raise awareness about this very serious topic and to increase support for an organization that helped me to truly become a survivor. Parts of what I share can be triggering, so please keep that in mind. Here we go. I grew up very distant from the thought of domestic violence. I had no idea what it was and did not imagine that it would become a term I'd become so familiar with. I was raised without a dad. My family consisted of my mom, my 3 aunts, and my grandparents. I had no concept of how a dad contributed to the family because the majority of my family members were women. So perhaps I felt a void during my childhood that lasted throughout my teen years and into my adulthood. I may have subconsciously desired to meet a man who was caring and responsible and wanted to take care of me. The person I ultimately came to love and trust appeared to have everything I was looking for. But he also had one flaw. He couldn't control his anger. At first, it came out in short spurts. Suddenly, he'd yell at me because I didn't do something right. He walked out on me on multiple occasions in public places simply because we disagreed on something and he did not like my answer. I felt myself getting smaller every time he treated me this way. Ironically, I also found myself becoming more and more dependent on this man over time. I convinced myself that his love fluctuated based on my behavior. I felt like if I tried harder to correct myself, he would not get so angry. I felt powerless around him and slowly allowed him to dominate my life. As the days and weeks progressed, his acts of anger became violent. He choked me, he grabbed me, and taunted me with hateful words. After every incident, he told me that I provoked him. Once he smashed my iPad, my laptop, and my phone because he didn't like the tone in which I answered his question. That same night, he shoved me against the bathroom wall, tore off my jewelry, and punched the wall right next to my head. I should have recognized the countless red flags by this point. So why did I choose to stay? He convinced me through his web of lies that I was worthless without him. He physically and sexually abused me during the course of our relationship and had told me that he marked me so that I couldn't leave him. I felt like I didn't have a choice. I'm also a very loyal person and had promised to be with him through good times and bad. The few moments during which he seemed remorseful made me believe that he could change. It was a dark and cold night when the most unexpected thing happened. I didn't do something he asked me to do, and suddenly, he punched me. He threw me off the bed and pinned me down by sitting on me. He used my face as his punching bag. I suffered countless blows, drifting in and out of consciousness. He smiled at me as I pleaded with him to stop. He grabbed my hair and banged my head repeatedly on the hard floor. He demanded that I beg him again, and when I did, he continued to assault me. He even ripped off my ring, put it on his pinky, and intentionally scarred my face as he punched me with it. His violent actions left bloody marks that would take weeks to heal. He choked me so hard that I truly believed I was going to die in his hands that night. As if that was not enough, he chased me downstairs and blocked my path as I tried to escape. He threw me pounded my head, and punched me again repeatedly until he was satisfied. He asked where I thought I was going. He terrorized me all over again inside my home for what seemed like forever. The violence continued until I promised everything he asked of me. He moved aside just enough for me to bolt out of there in my flip-flops on a freezing night. I fled to a friend's place. She called 911. My vitals were all over the place and my entire head throbbed with pain. I was taken to the emergency room, and the doctor could not count how many contusions I had suffered. He wrote down at least 7 contusions on each side of my face. I couldn't sleep for nights because my head was so swollen and sensitive. Despite strong pain medication, laying on a soft pillow felt like a million needles were piercing through my head. My finger was swollen from the force at which he ripped off my ring. I couldn't stop crying because his betrayal hurt so much. I have never felt this alone, helpless, and lost. I tell you this story not so that you can pity me, but so that you can learn about what domestic violence really looks like. I thank God for sparing my life that night. I'm so grateful that I could be here to tell you about my experience, because I know there are countless others who did not survive to tell their stories. An organization like CPAP has been a godsend for me because it gave me free counseling to get through the crucial days and weeks and months following the assault. It helped me to leave the house again and eventually to face the real world again. CPAP educated me on what exactly happened because I've been in so much shock and did not know how to make sense of everything. The organization provided me with a nurturing support system. I remember a gift I received from my counselor. The CPAP staff had put together a thoughtful gift bag filled with presents, including a hand-knitted white scarf made by an organization that supports victims of domestic violence. That scarf represented a symbol for strength and promoted a sense of warmth, security, and comfort. Exactly what I needed during that time. After months of counseling and therapy, I began to see the positive outcomes as a result of what's happened. I no longer see myself as lost or worthless. And although I've been a victim of domestic violence, I'm more importantly a survivor. The experience forced me to push forward. It introduced me to opportunities I never knew existed. I came to understand that while I was in this toxic relationship, God was telling me to move. And when I didn't, He moved me so that I still had a path to life and happiness. I'm filled with new hope as I pursue numerous possibilities. Every day has been a journey, and I am on a mission to transform my negative experience into something positive. It's difficult to share my story because doing so re-traumatizes me. I live with haunting memories that will never die. But I want to help bring about change and help each of you truly understand why we are gathered here tonight. There are lots of people right now struggling through similar experiences as mine. They are in desperate need of support from their communities. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it encourages you to join me in the fight to stop this unacceptable crime and to amplify the message that domestic violence is preventable. Thank you.
It's been a few years, but listening to my story again from that night still takes me back to those exact moments I described. Storytelling can be such a powerful tool to not only fundraise for great causes, but to give yourself a voice. I hope seeing me tell my story in this way motivates you to start writing yours down too. Everybody has a story to share, and it can be a really compelling one, especially if you overcame an adversity too. I've been asked a lot for tips on how to effectively tell your story. I made a video about that and can make more in the future, but for now, I'll share these 3 quick tips. Speak from your heart, be honest with your emotions, and remind yourself that you are worthy of being heard. Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to my story. Please like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you again in my next video. Bye.